it's absolutely been mind-boggling as I listened to all five of you. It didn't feel like I was listening to CFOs at all, because there was not a single word of accounting, reconciliation, trial balance that I actually heard. What I heard was business. What I heard was consumers. What I heard was volatility. What I heard was challenging almost every line. Yeah. And I probably, maybe this is, going kind of redundant, but I would still say it. Finance is the only function which probably has the end-to-end visibility of the business apart from the CEO. Yeah. And therefore, this is the moment, for the finance function to actually rise up, and deliver. And I would encourage the panelists to actually look at the Q&A. So we will try and, take one question from me, and then one question we can go from the audience as well, so that we keep it, as interactive, and I'll try and, post them to you. The first thing that I would actually, start off is, I've heard sales is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is reality. Yeah. That, is coming to fore, really now. And I've heard all of you, talk about how you actually, prioritize cash. I keep saying, this in my past life, that there are many people in the organization who look at P&L. Many people, yeah. So even if finance takes the eye off the ball on P&L, that there is the business, there's marketing, there is, sales, there's general management, guys who actually probably look at the P&L and then will try and, correct course. But there's nobody else who looks at balance sheet. Yeah. And the only function which actually looks at balance sheet is finance. In times of crisis, it is not the profitable companies that survive, it's the liquid companies that actually survive. Yeah. So I'm just going to ask, both Anand and Manas to talk about, because around this time, they've probably, looked at cash and taken one step forward, and ensure that they could bolster. Nitin already gave examples that he went to the granular level, and looked at if I can replace a payment with a guarantee. Yeah. Very, very smart. And I would encourage the audience to take these tips, yeah, to go back, because they are very, very operational tips and, and nuggets of wisdom, coming out from here. But I would like to ask Anand and Manas to talk about what they did, during this time to actually do a fundraise and also an M&A deal. So it'll be interesting for the audience to know, to say that just because we are locked down doesn't mean, we need to have business, as a standstill. Anand, Manas, both to you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Kabir. I think, at UPL, and I think I personally also always believe that whenever there's adversity, there are a lot of opportunities. And you can only take advantage of opportunities if you have cash. So while cash may be looked also as a surviving kit, but it also is, if you have adequate cash, you can, take advantages of the opportunities which come by. And therefore, for us, we are a growth-oriented company. Of course, during such adversities, as a CFO, one of my critical things is to ensure that it remains profitable and there's enough cash generation. But, at the same time, it's important to have cash on the balance sheet so that, it's like this. I mean, again, some of these are very, very cliche statements. When you want cash, there is nobody to give you, lenders. But when you don't need, you always have a queue of people willing to come and lend to you. And I think, being agile is something which is very critical, particularly in such type of global pandemics, because as I think Manas pointed out, we don't know whether it's 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, or how long this will continue. So it's always good to stack up cash and keep it. And fortunately, we are a global company. We're headquartered out of, I would say we are a MNC with a headquarters in India. We have access to global fundraising. And, with today interest rates, Eurozone has negative interest rates, negative LIBOR, US is very low. Cost of fund is not that high for us. So we are also an investment grade company, one of the few from India. So, with cost of funding at 2% or 3%, I think it was no brainer, but to make sure you amass enough cash. I'll stop here. I'll hand over to Manas. I'm sure he has a few more things to add. Over to you, Manas.
Thank you, Anand. Before I talk about my experience during these 3 months, and quite encouraging and probably very positive to each of the listener, I would also like to ask this entire audience to go back and think that whether cash is the king, why do you need cash? So, if, of course, I'm not debating that the cash is king. I'm not at all debating. Cash is certainly king. But which king? Is it an operating king? Is an ownership king? Or it's something paranoid of a authoritative king? So that one, in case somebody can really look at, the cash probably is needed only when, I think Kabir has very rightly pointed out, when you do not look at the balance sheet. Profit and loss account is 100% an illusion. The balance sheet, all the current assets and liabilities that we are sitting on the balance sheet, all the paraphernalia of capexes which could have been avoided in the past when you had a lot of cash, you pumped into the business for generating additional capacity, and now you know that you don't need them anymore. Or alternately, you have pumped into investments in so-called new businesses or so-called new ventures. I think it creates a trouble on the cash. So, so if somebody's balance sheet is heavily skewed towards the capital assets, skewed towards the investment, and of course for that there is an obligation on the liability side of the balance sheet, there will be a cash crunch. Coincidentally, it's not a COVID situation, but I would like to share with all my panelists as well as all the listeners today is that almost 1.5 years back, we started an action which we called is a net working capital, which should be an X percentage of sales, right? I'm not divulging what percentage of that. We are also, like Anand is a global organization. I'm a global CFO headquartered in Mumbai, handling from US to Australia. So there are 21 countries where we have our presences, our R&D centers, our manufacturing locations, our distribution locations. And every country has different kinds of businesses, right? And don't forget that we are highly regulated industry. So we looked into the net working capital. And when I say net working capital, I'm a firm believer that you can really in today's world work without a capital employed into the business in the form of working capital. That does not necessarily mean that you stop paying to the creditors. I'm not saying that. But how you define, one defines the debtors, one defines the inventory level, both at the primary and the secondary level, somebody has to keep. And of course, how to finance them. There can be situation and available finance, which Anand was talking about, which are even much cheaper than the very, very standardized financing models of raising money, like a factoring, like a reverse factoring, like probably in India, you can get into all your imports, convert it into an SBLC for an extended period of more than 365 days with a marginal cost, which is probably insignificant. It will be less than 2% for sure of majority of us who are sitting here and who are the listeners. So without getting into that granularity, my take on the cash is king is that let us first go back to the balance sheet, look at where my cash is stuck. That is what is more important. And the second part, what I would sincerely encourage everybody to look at, what is that cash generation to EBITDA? Are you a 80% plus of your EBITDA is generating into a cash? You are in safe hands. Otherwise, you are investing or plowing back money into the business to sustain the business. That may not be very long, unless otherwise you are into an infrastructure or that kind of a long gestation period. I'm not generalizing it, but companies like us, FMCG, companies like pharma, companies like probably some other consumer-driven organization. Cash as king may be a connotation, but the important part is how I define that cash. So loans and advances, all security deposits, all the debit balances of your balance sheet on the asset side, and all corresponding capital employed, please look into, probably you have a different fee. While just on one more moment, during this 3 months of lockdown, we also did surprisingly a very large scale M&A. sitting at home, working for late nights without knowing what time of the night. And I think 6, 7 of us in the team, we were closing the deal, unbelievable, unprecedented time. But at the end of the day, when I see every day in the morning, the cash balance in the balance sheet looks fabulous. It gives a feel like, okay, I'm a tea connoisseur. My morning cup of tea, not the coffee. And it's really, really aromatic to see that. 3 months back, it was not there in the balance sheet, and I was really worried. At that time, it used to take like a steroid to boost it up. Today, it's an aromatic tea. Thank you very much.